Hello aspirants, you're hearing to the UPSC radio presented by UPSC Launch. In this episode, we are going to discuss about economics of climate change. This is very much important because you have to understand that if any government wants to extremely develop and wants to make extreme investments in their infrastructural projects, it eventually hurt the environment. At the same time, they have to protect the environment because the climate change. In this context, this current affair is quite important and the analysis of this current affair is quite important. Let's get deep into the topic. The COP26 of the climate talks are going to take place in the Glasgow, and given the magnitude of climate change phenomena occurring all over the world, the upcoming climate deal negotiation is very much crucial to cap global warming at the 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius upper limit set out in the 2015 Paris Agreement. In this context, it is necessary to analyze the impact of climate change on economic livelihoods in the world over the and future stability of the global financial system is necessary. Here you have to take some key points, that is the climate change cost. Although there is disagreement on the magnitude and several economists are certain about the possible impact of global warming on global output, according to IMF estimate, unchecked global warming would reduce 7% of world output by 2100, and the network for green the financial system, which is a group of world central banks, puts it even higher at 13%. That is like you can say the climate change measures that are going to be taken by many countries will affect 7% of world output according to International Monetary Funds, and according to NFGS it will affect 13%, that is 13%. So this is the most vulnerable area because it is anonymously accepted that developing world will be the worst affected area by climate change. And presently much of the world's poor live in the tropical or low-lying regions, already suffering climate change fallout like droughts or rising sea levels. Moreover, their countries rarely have the resources to mitigate such damage. And also it will impact on micro level. Climate change will drive up to 132 million more people into extreme poverty by 2030, which is a report by the World Bank. It released a paper and that was concluded in this paper. And the factors included lost farming income, lower outdoor labor productivity, rising food prices, increased diseases, and economic losses from extreme weather will also be there. Now, by analyzing the net zero emission scenario, it refers to achieving an overall balance between greenhouse gas emissions produced and greenhouse gas emissions taken out of the atmosphere. However, there are several economic repercussions owing to the net zero emissions. A report by think tank Carbon Tracker estimated that over $1 trillion of business as usual investment by the oil and gas sector would no longer be viable in a genuinely low carbon world. Moreover, the International Monetary Fund has called for the end of all fossil fuel subsidies, which it calculated at $5 trillion annually, defined to include undercharging for supply, environmental and health costs, which may lead to an unemployment crisis of mass level. And also the other important factor that you have to focus on is the below par carbon pricing. These tax or permit schemes that try to price in the damage done by emissions create incentives to go green. However, so far only a fifth of global carbon emissions are covered by such programs, pricing carbon on average at a mere USD 3 a ton, that is US $3 a ton. And this is well below the US $75 per ton the International Monetary Fund says is needed to cap global warming at well below 2 degrees centigrade. But due to which there is a risk of inflation. That is like you can see anything which factors in the polluting cost of fossil fuels is likely to lead to price rises in the sectors, especially the transportation sector. And here you have to understand one more key point, that is the failure of green decoupling. Sustainable development growth implies that economic activity can grow as needed without adding yet more emissions. However, this has failed to manifest up till now. Presently, higher rates of economic growth are achieved, but it is accompanied by gains in emissions or achieved by shifting dirty production from one national territory to another. And the inadequate green finance is there currently that should be taken care of. At a global scale, the rich countries which since their industrial revolutions have generated the bulk of emissions have promised to develop promised to help developing countries, and the transition via US $100 billion of annual transfers, which is a promise so far not fulfilled. So you have to understand this, the covering up of economic risk of net zero emissions is very much important, and the global financial systems needed to be insulated against both the fiscal risks of climate change itself and the upheavals likely to happen during a transition to net zero. Central banks and national treasuries should form a combined strategy to balance economic growth with sustainable development, and a vital step should be explicitly including policies for climate mitigation in the government budget, along with energy, roads, health and education. And there is a very much important, this is to switch to hydrogen economy. Power generation by green hydrogen will be a viable solution to achieve the target of net zero emissions to remain under 1.5 degrees centigrade. It will also be a leap forward in minimizing the dependence on conventional fossil fuels. The final important thing that you should say, that you should focus, that is mobilizing the climate finance. There is also a need to launch a major campaign to mobilize climate finance, and focus should be given on energy efficiency, use of biofuels, carbon sequestration, carbon pricing, so on. This is all about the economics of climate change. So yes, the mitigation steps that to be taken to control the climate change may affect economically, and if you don't take any steps, it will obviously affect the the pollution will affect the people's health, and that one also is suffer to the economy. In this context, there should be a very much important that it should be given on this, so that the governments can make development possible, as well as they shouldn't go back in the focus from environment. So it should happen. I hope you do like this episode. If you do like this episode, please share it to your friends and also share them about UPSC launch. We are coming with our own website and the app, which is in the development, and it will be live soon, and you will have all the UPSC content. UPSC launch is such a place where learning makes very much possible to you, that too with the happy, so that you won't feel any pressure in your preparation, but you will prepare as you should be. This is MM signing off. We'll meet you in the next important current affair episode.